Welcome back to another exploration in the Wisdom of Scholastic series.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really diving into something quite profound, aren't we? We're tackling a core section of Thomas Aquinas' huge work, the Summa Theologica.
That's right. Specifically, his treatise on the Most Holy Trinity, covering questions 27 through 38. It's central.
Absolutely central. And we're not just, reading through it. We're aiming to sort of unpack the very nature of God as Aquinas understood it through his incredibly rigorous, almost detective-like thinking.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't shy away from the mystery, does he?
Not at all. He dives right in, but he's always trying to provide a reasoned, understandable framework, even for something like the Trinity.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how he approaches it. It's not just laying down dogma like, here it is, believe it.
Right.
He meticulously builds his arguments.
Mm-hmm.
He anticipates objections. He weighs counter-arguments, defines his terms with just incredible precision. It really feels like an invitation to engage intellectually with the divine.
Asking why these things make sense, not just what they are.
Exactly.
So that's really our mission for this session, isn't it? To try and grasp Aquinas' arguments for these internal processions within God.
These flows within the divine life.
And then the relations they set up, which define the divine persons, and how all that logically leads to the Holy Trinity. We want to make these pretty complex ideas accessible and meaningful for you.
Cutting through the centuries to see what still resonates.
Exactly. And hey, before we jump fully in, just a quick reminder, if you find these explorations valuable, please do like and subscribe to the channel.
And click that notification bell so you don't miss future discussions.
And definitely share your thoughts, your questions in the comments section below. We genuinely love seeing your engagement.
We really do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start with maybe the first big concept, the foundation, really. Question 27, procession in God. Now, procession, to me, sounds like movement, something coming out of something else.
Yeah, like a parade or something.
Right. But we're always told God is immutable, unchanging. So how does Aquinas talk about procession without implying change? What's going on there?
That's a perfect starting point, and it's crucial. Aquinas is very clear. He's absolutely not talking about local movement or, change in the way we usually understand it.
Okay.
When he uses procession regarding God, he means an internal, immanent emanation, something happening within the divine essence itself.
Within, not outwards.
Exactly. Think of it less like something flowing out and more like an internal act that expresses God's perfect active nature. He actually uses analogies from us.
Like what?
Like how a thought or an idea proceeds from your intellect. It comes from you, but it doesn't diminish you or change your substance. It's an internal act of knowing.
Okay, I see. Or like love proceeding from your will.
Precisely. Love arising from affection or desire. It's an internal operation expressing who you are. Aquinas uses these human analogies carefully to give us a foothold without, shrinking God down to our level.
That helps a lot. So it's about God's internal activity, not God changing location or form. And he identifies two specific types of these internal processions.
Exactly two. No more, no less. The first is what he calls an intellectual procession. This is termed generation.
Generation.
Right. This is the eternal procession of the Word, who we know theologically as the Son coming forth from the Father's divine intellect.
So like the Father's perfect self-understanding.
You could think of it that way. It's like the perfect internal concept or idea the mind forms when it fully understands itself or something else. It's the Father's complete self-expression, eternally conceived within the divine mind.
An internal act of knowing. It's distinct, but not separate from the Father who thinks it.
Perfectly put. It signifies an emanation by way of intellect. Then the second type is a volitional procession. This one's called spiration.
Spiration. Okay, so related to will or spirit.
Exactly. From the will. This is the eternal procession of love of the Holy Spirit proceeding from the shared will of the Father and the Son.
Shared will. So from both.
From both, acting as one principle, we'll touch on that more later, it's analogous to how love or affection just sort of arises from desire or the act of willing within us. And this spiration, this breathing forth of love, is fundamentally different from generation because it comes from the will, not the intellect.
Intellect generates the word. Will spirates love.
Got it. And Aquinas is quite firm that there are only these two, right? Why just two? Is it just what he observed, or is there a logical necessity?
Oh, it's definitely a logical necessity for him. It's not arbitrary at all. He argues there can only be two because they correspond directly to the two primary internal immanent operations within God's very essence: understanding, intellect, and loving will.
The core divine activities.
Right. The word proceeds from the act of understanding. Love proceeds from the act of loving or willing. If you propose more processions, you'd logically have to imply either more than one divine essence, which is impossible, God is one, or you'd imply separate principles of action within God, which would contradict God's absolute simplicity. So it's tightly bound to God's unity and simplicity. It has to be just two.
It has to be, according to his metaphysical framework. It flows from the very nature of God as pure act, possessing perfect intellect and perfect will.
It really is impressive how he grounds these incredibly abstract ideas in analogies from our own minds, the word we form, the love we feel. It helps you build a sort of mental model without pretending we fully grasp the mystery.
Exactly. It respects the mystery while still allowing reason its proper role.
Okay, so these internal divine acts, these processions, they aren't just happening in isolation. You said they establish something. How do they lead us to the idea of relations within God? What's the connection there?
The connection is direct and necessary. These internal processions, by their very nature, establish what Aquinas calls real relations within God.
Real relations.
Right.
Meaning they aren't just ideas we have about God.
Precisely. They are distinct from the divine essence itself, God's being, but they are not separate from it. Think of it like this. The eternal act of the Father generating the Son inherently creates a real relationship for the Father that's paternity.
Okay.
And it simultaneously creates a real relationship for the Son that's filiation, or sonship. These aren't just labels we apply. They are real eternal distinctions within the one God arising from these acts of procession.
So they're real because they signify a genuine distinction based on origin. Like the Father's distinct from the Son because he generates, and the Son's distinct because he is generated, an opposition of origin.
That's exactly Aquinas' point. The relations in God are real because they signify this real opposition based purely on their origin. Paternity is opposed to filiation, and these relations are also distinct from each other.
How so?
By the nature of that opposition. The father-son relation, based on intellectual generation, is distinct from the relations involving the Holy Spirit, which are based on volitional spiration. Different processions yield different kinds of relations.
Right. And this leads him to identify four notions. What are those?
Yes, the four notions are basically the defining characteristics that arise from these relations and help us identify the persons. They are paternity, the Father's unique relation of originating the Son; filiation, the Son's unique relation of being originated by the Father; spiration, this one's a bit different. It signifies the shared act of the Father and Son breathing forth the Spirit, often called common spiration; and procession, which refers to the Holy Spirit's relation of proceeding from the Father and Son.
Okay, paternity, filiation, spiration, procession. Four notions.
Four notions arising from the two processions and the resulting relations. And it's crucial, as you connect this to the bigger picture, to keep stressing these relations don't divide God's essence.
Right. God stays simple, unified.
Utterly simple and unified, but internally there are these real relational distinctions based entirely on how they eternally originate from one another.
Okay, this is building very logically. We have internal processions leading to real relations, giving us these distinct notions or characteristics. Now, the big step, how does this whole framework lead us to the concept of persons in God? Person feels like such a human term.
It does, and that's a really important bridge. What does person even mean when talking about the infinite, simple God?
Yeah, it seems tricky.
Aquinas tackles this head-on. He actually borrows a definition from the earlier philosopher Boethius.
Oh, right, Boethius.
Yeah. Boethius defined a person as an individual substance of a rational nature. Now, Aquinas takes that definition.
But God isn't a substance like you or me, an individual created thing.
Exactly. So Aquinas has to adapt it carefully. He argues that the term person is actually supremely fitting for God. Why? Because person signifies what is most perfect in reality, things like self-awareness, intelligence, will, individuality, in a conscious sense.
The highest perfections.
The highest perfections we know. And God possesses intellect and will, these core aspects of personhood, in an absolutely infinite and perfect way. So the term person is used precisely because it points to that ultimate perfection within the divine nature.
So it's not defining God in the limited human way, but using the term that best captures his highest attributes, like intelligence and will. And in God, this term person primarily points to the relations.
That's the key insight in question 29, Article 4. While the primary definition of person is about rational nature, when applied to God, the term person ends up signifying what is distinct within the divine essence and what creates that distinction.
The relations of opposition we just talked about.
Exactly. So the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are distinct persons because they are these distinct subsistent relations within the one undivided divine essence. They are the relational modes of being God.
So why not just say God is distinct in three ways? Why use the word person?
That's a fair question. Aquinas' precision here is vital. Using the term person does two things. It safeguards the reality of the distinctions. They aren't just our ideas, they are real subsistent relations. And it safeguards the unity. It prevents us from thinking of three separate gods or three parts of God. It emphasizes that these distinctions exist within the single, unified, divine substance.
It preserves both unity and distinction. Very careful terminology.
Incredibly careful.
Okay, so all this detailed intellectual work, processions, relations, notions, persons, it's all building towards the central mystery, the Holy Trinity. How does this framework logically confirm that there are three and only three divine persons? It feels like we're connecting the final dots now.
We are. This is where the whole structure comes together beautifully, based on those two distinct processions, intellectual generation and volitional spiration, and the resulting real relations of opposition.
And Aquinas argues that there must be exactly three persons.
Precisely three. He demonstrates this in question 30. Because there are only two ways of originating within God, generation and spiration, these give rise to specific, mutually opposed relations that define three distinct subsistent subjects or persons. The Father, defined by paternity, unoriginated origin, the Son, defined by filiation, originated by generation, and the Holy Spirit, defined by procession, originated by spiration from Father and Son.
So the number three isn't just a revealed dogma, it's a logical consequence of how God's inner life works, according to Aquinas.
Absolutely. It's not arbitrary. If there were, say, another fundamental divine operation besides intellect and will leading to a distinct type of procession, then you might argue for more persons, but based on intellect and will being the core operations.
You get three relationally distinct entities.
Exactly. The Father, the Son proceeding from the Father, and the Holy Spirit proceeding from the Father and Son as one principle. Three distinct relational identities.
And what about the term Trinity itself? What significance does Aquinas give to that word?
For Aquinas, the term Trinity, question 31, primarily refers to the number of persons. But it's not just counting. It signifies the perfect unity and plurality within God. It points to the incredible reality that God is simultaneously one essence and three persons. It's a term that encapsulates that central mystery.
So it's not just threeness, but three in oneness.
Yes, a unity that contains distinctness without division. It's truly amazing how he argues that the very number flows logically from God's nature. It's not just counting, as you said, it's understanding the structure of divine distinctness.
Now, Aquinas also spends time on the specific names we use: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. He analyzes these in questions 33 through 38. What do these names reveal about each person's unique properties and relations, tying back to processions and relations?
Oh, definitely. The names are crucial because they aren't just arbitrary labels. They signify the proper attributes and the defining relations of each divine person.
So starting with the Father, question 33.
The name Father primarily signifies his unique relation of paternity, the fact that he eternally generates the Son. It also signifies him as the principle without principle, meaning he is the ultimate source within the Godhead, unbegotten, unoriginated.
The uncaused cause within the Trinity itself.
In a relational sense, yes.
Yeah.
Then the Son, questions 34-35, he's often called the Word and the Image.
Why those terms?
Word connects directly back to the intellectual procession. The Son proceeds eternally from the Father's intellect as the Father's perfect self-concept, his eternally spoken word. It emphasizes the intellectual nature of his origin.
And image.
Image highlights his perfect similitude to the Father. Because he proceeds as the perfect concept or understanding of the Father, he perfectly reflects the Father's essence. Like a flawless image in a mirror, he shares the identical nature.
Okay, word for intellectual origin, image for perfect likeness. And finally, the Holy Spirit. Questions 36-38. He's called love and gift.
Yes. Love signifies his mode of procession. He proceeds eternally from the Father and the Son through an act of their shared will. As the bond of love between them, he's the love they share.
Like the embodiment of their mutual affection.
Exactly. And gift emphasizes that this divine love isn't just kept within the Trinity. The Holy Spirit is the uncreated gift of God's own love, given eternally within the Godhead. Father and Son give the Spirit to each other, in a sense, and also poured out upon creation as the source of grace and sanctification.
The self-giving love of God.
Precisely. And this is where Aquinas addresses that key point we mentioned earlier, the filioque clause, the idea that the Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son.
Right. Question 36, Article 2. That was historically contentious.
Hugely contentious, a major factor in the East-West schism. Aquinas provides a robust defense of the Western position, arguing that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son as from one single principle. Not two separate sources, but one shared act of spiration flowing from their shared divine essence and mutual love.
So he sees it as necessary to maintain the unity of the divine operation.
Yes, and to properly distinguish the Son and the Spirit based on their distinct modes of origin relative to the Father.
It's just layer upon layer of careful reasoning.
It really is. And ultimately, what Aquinas consistently clarifies throughout these questions is that despite the real distinctness of the persons Father, Son, Holy Spirit, defined by their relations,
there's only one single, undivided divine essence. One God.
One God. That's the bedrock. This isn't just, abstract theological gymnastics for academics. It's about trying to understand as best we can the very nature of the God Christians believe in a God who is fundamentally rational, relational, and loving at his core.
So reflecting on all this, what does it really mean for you, our listener? I think it means that even the most profound mysteries, the things that seem completely beyond us, can be approached with reason, with careful thought.
It doesn't eliminate the mystery, but it deepens our appreciation of it.
Right. Aquinas gives us a kind of toolkit, a framework for thinking deeply about truths that ultimately do transcend our full comprehension. But the thinking itself, the intellectual engagement, draws us closer. It can lead to a richer, more informed faith and understanding of God's inner life.
It invites us to use the minds God gave us to contemplate God himself.
Exactly. So here's maybe a final thought to ponder as you reflect on this wisdom from the scholastics. Consider how Aquinas' method itself, this incredibly detailed inquiry, this insistence on definition and logical progression, even when dealing with divine mysteries, how might that encourage a deeper, more thoughtful engagement with all the complex truths you encounter in your own life?
That's a great point. How can that kind of intellectual rigor actually deepen spiritual understanding or our grasp of challenging issues, rather than somehow diminishing the wonder or the faith?
Something to think about, how careful thinking and faith can work together.
Definitely. And once again, if you found this discussion valuable, please do support the channel by liking, subscribing,
clicking that notification bell so you catch our next exploration,
and sharing your own reflections or questions down in the comments. We really value hearing from you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into Aquinas and the Trinity and the Summa Theologica.
Thanks for listening.